I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. Kellyanne Conway, who served as the top Donald Trump campaign manager during the 2016 campaign and then had a top role in the Trump administration. She was seen walking out of the Manhattan District Attorney's office on Wednesday, March 1, in connection with the Manhattan District Attorney's criminal investigation that's taking place into Donald Trump's financial crimes and specifically into Donald Trump's falsification of business records as it relates to claiming that the hush money payment made by Michael Cohen to Stormy Daniels to cover up Donald Trump's sexual affair with her while Melania was pregnant was a legal reimbursement as opposed to what it really was, a hush money settlement payment. Now, Kellyanne Conway, as I mentioned, was seen walking into the Manhattan District Attorney's office and leaving, and this represents an escalation in the Manhattan District Attorney's criminal investigation that we've been talking about here on the MeidasTouch network. Of course, I host a show on the MeidasTouch network called Political Beatdown with Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is one of the witnesses who has been meeting with Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney. Cohen has met with the Manhattan DA's office a total of 17 times. I think it's been 3 times with Alvin Bragg, and he's told us exclusively and first on the MeidasTouch network that he would be meeting again with Alvin Bragg on Friday. He said that he was very impressed with Alvin Bragg's team, and we know that Cohen was very critical of Alvin Bragg and Alvin Bragg's team previously before he started meeting with them and actually being in the room. Cohen couldn't provide a ton of specifics given that he is one of the, in my opinion, key witnesses in the case, but talked about the fact that he believed that the plane, if you will, is taking off in the right direction and would be landing on the runway of justice fairly soon, which gave me a significant amount of comfort. And in addition to Kellyanne Conway meeting with the Manhattan District Attorney, we have reported here as well that a grand jury is impaneled, which is now considering and hearing the evidence about Donald Trump's financial crimes. And it is this grand jury that can ultimately indict Donald Trump. And I am very confident within the next 90 days will indeed be indicting Trump. I would be surprised, very surprised, if that doesn't happen. And you all know here that I am very careful and meticulous with my predictions, and already there have been approximately 5 witnesses who have met with the grand jury and who have provided testimony. Trump employees Jeffrey McConney and Deborah Tarasoff, both who, let's just say, were not exactly the jury's favorite in the prior criminal trial where the Trump organization was convicted on 17 felony counts. You also have David Pecker and Dylan Howard, who previously led the National Enquirer. Remember, they helped arrange hush money previously for Donald Trump, and they have their whole procedure where they would try to pay off people on behalf of Donald Trump in the past and kill stories. They called their process of trying to cover up Donald Trump's criminal conduct and escapades with pornographic actresses and other conduct that Trump would engage in. They would call it catch and kill. And also who's testified before the grand jury is Keith Davidson, a former lawyer of Miss Daniels. Now, the fact that Kellyanne Conway showed up, it appears that she showed up voluntarily. We're not aware of any specific subpoena that compelled her to show up or to be there. And there's a reason that she was there, and we learned about the reason from Michael Cohen. He's told us here on the MeidasTouch network, as well as he wrote about it in his 2020 book. And this is what he said in his book. After Cohen paid the hush money, $130,000 to Stormy Daniels at the direction of Donald Trump, Cohen said, then I, quote, called Trump to confirm that the transaction was completed and the documentation all in place, but he didn't take my call. Obviously, a very bad sign in hindsight, Michael Cohen said. He then went on to write that Kellyanne Conway called instead of Donald Trump, and she'd pass along the good news. a direct quote that Cohen attributes to Kellyanne Conway, that she was the one who called, was aware that this hush money payment was made. And remember, the hush money payment was made as Donald Trump was running for office, again, to try to cover up what took place. And it was paid by Cohen. And then Trump, when he paid Cohen back, called it a legal reimbursement as opposed to a hush money payment. That's a falsification. And in the state of New York, a falsification of business records is a felony. And if they just try Trump on those charges, and it seems that's what they're focused on, Trump can serve up to 4 years in prison in Rikers Island. Donald Trump is obviously dreading that, and he's previously talked about how his CFO Weisselberg, who didn't serve all that much time on Rikers Island, how that scared him and that he thought that that was completely unfair. But this is Donald Trump being individually potentially criminally indicted. And I think all of the evidence, all of the data points we have point to that taking place. Now, speaking of Kellyanne Conway, the day before she showed up to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to provide information in connection with their criminal investigation into Donald Trump and her role therein, Dan Goldman, a new New York Congress member, a freshman New York Congress member and former federal prosecutor, introduced in the House of Representatives his own bill, which he calls the Kellyanne Conway Act, which would more significantly criminalize violations of the Hatch Act, which is something that Kellyanne Conway and Trump routinely engaged in. Here, play this clip.
But you know what Ms. Conway's response to her serial violations of the Hatch Act were? She said, quote, "If you're trying to silence me through the Hatch Act, it's not going to work. Let me know when the jail sentence starts." Mr. Sessions said earlier today that the purpose of H.R. 140 is to try to stop anyone from using the White House for political purposes. And so in that vein, today I'm offering the Kellyanne Conway Amendment that will allow for prison sentences under criminal violations of the law for knowing and intentional violations of the Hatch Act. This amendment will add a criminal provision to the Hatch Act to prevent the kind of blatant disregard for the law demonstrated by Ms. Conway and her colleagues in the Trump administration. Unlike the bill that we are marking up today, which is a solution without a problem, the Hatch Act violations are a problem that needs a solution.
And I'm also always reminded whenever I do a story about Kellyanne Conway, report on her, I can't forget this piece where in 2017, she went on Meet the Press and talked about the alternate facts. Play this clip.
I did answer your question.
No, you did not. You did not answer the question of why the president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office on day one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative facts? Alternative facts, 4 of the 5 facts he uttered. The one thing he got right was Zeke Miller. 4 of the 5 facts he uttered were just not true. Look, alternative facts are not facts. They're falsehoods.
And as I watched that clip, obviously it's very disturbing what Kellyanne Conway said. That was kind of the beginning in the Trump administration for us to realize here is what they are going to do every single time, that he's not going to rise to the occasion of the office, that he will lie and lie and lie and have all of his people lie in the most ridiculous and absurd ways. But one observation that I think I can make here that's perhaps different than the obvious about how just despicable it is what Kellyanne Conway did right there and continued to do and continues to do to this day, though, is Chuck Riley, I think, actually did a good job there. There was the appropriate level of outrage when she said alternate facts. He was like, what are you talking about? But what I've noticed about large media networks, including Chuck Todd specifically, is that, and here's the thing that happens with lies and big lies, if you repeat them over and over and over and over again, and the way she gaslit him and basically said, don't be so dramatic, and repeating that over and over again, the media just gave up. it was too hard for them to keep pressing all of the lies. So the large media networks just kind of stopped their fight. They lost the spirit that was frankly really important there. That's one of the things when I watched that clip again, I haven't watched it in a little bit of time, I was like, that was actually pretty good. And that's what we need the media to do more of when they do those types of interviews, calling people out like that. And unfortunately, when the lies were repeated relentlessly, I think it just exhausted the large media networks. And frankly, they then did not do their job. And they're like, okay, we're just going to get lied to, when they could have said, no, we need to rise to the occasion. So we'll keep you posted with more developments on what the Manhattan District Attorney's Office is doing. Of course, make sure you subscribe to the Political Beatdown podcast. Just search Political Beatdown that I do with Michael Cohen. We are live every Tuesdays and Thursdays. Also subscribe to the MeidasTouch podcast that I do with my brothers. And we are marching to 1 million subscribers here on the MeidasTouch Network. So hit subscribe and subscribe to this great YouTube channel. But it's free to subscribe, and also check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Thank you so much for watching this, and please hit the subscribe button right now.
Love this video? Then you'll love the MeidasTouch podcast. Listen as my brothers and I break down the latest news and chat with top political leaders on the fastest growing pro-democracy podcast in the world. New episodes drop every Tuesday and Friday. Add the MeidasTouch podcast right now wherever you listen to your podcasts.